Good morning, guys, one more time. And let us start with the next point. Yesterday, we talked about very simple basic applications. We talked about some operators like mathematical, like relation comparison operator. So let us continue further. Let's explore a couple of more type of operators, and then we'll continue with the next point. Okay. So let me start with the day 3. Let us create day 3, where we should create it. Here it is. I have created that Python and right here. Okay, so now I'm going to start writing the code. And before I start writing it, I would request all of you to log into your student portal, and probably you'll be able to see the same code which I'm typing here. So it will give you a chance to copy and paste the code. I hope I showed you that yesterday, that you can log into your student portal, go to online sessions, and from there click on that code link, and you'll be able to see what I'm typing here. Okay, so use that utility. It will save your time, and probably it will give you a chance to see if everything is working on your machine. Okay, so let's continue. By the way, before I start with it, can anyone please confirm that you can see it? Can anyone go to a student portal and confirm that it is working? Okay, thanks for confirmation, Vipin, Dipanjan, very good. Thanks a lot, good. Okay, so let us continue again. Now here we want to start again the operators. Now, if you are able to recall what we have seen, let me quickly go to that, and where we are, here it is. So we have seen examples of mathematical operators. We have seen examples of comparison operators. Now we wanted to look at the logical operators, and we should, in fact, let's continue with this one, the simplest example, and or. Again, this is programming fundamentals. I hope everyone knows what operator means and what different type of operators are. So this is a logical operator, or should I say logical operators, because there are two. So there is an operator, something like a and something like an or. Now, most of the other languages is where you are going to use and, where you can use an ampersand sign like this, maybe ampersand, and you use something like or as a or symbol, something like this, pipe. Okay. So generally, when you are using other languages, there you use something like this, but you are in Python. In Python, we simply write or as it is. For example, let's say you are taking an example, or you are taking an input from user, and you want to see if user has entered a valid data or a data in the valid range. So how do you do that? You do that by checking the range or checking the minimum and maximum value. Let's say, for example, I'm taking input from user for let's say a age, and I want to check if user has entered a valid age there. So how do we do this then? To do this, Santosh, Tejas, you're saying not working in a sense, are you not able to see that there, code option, or what is the current status? It's working for you, Utpal, very good. Tejas, Santosh, I think you're saying not working. Can you just please go ahead and try one more time? It's working, right? Okay, fine. So I'm assuming that it is working. If it is not working for you, just simply refresh it. You'll be able to see that. Okay. Okay, so let us come back here and say I want to get the input from user, and I want to check whether the age is in valid range. Now, before we talk about getting the input, let's finish this logical operators, and we'll talk about the user input after we are done with this operators part. So imagine that there is an age variable, and the age is let's say 20, for example. Now imagine that I'm taking input from user for a company, and for me or for my company, my valid range should be age should be greater than 20, and age should be something like less than 60. So this is what my valid criteria is. Now, as I said here, in general, when we are writing, maybe in English, we say that age is greater than 20 and let's say age is less than 60. Now, exactly what you are writing here in English, you can simply use that word, and you can complete that condition here. So see, I want to check if the age is valid or not. To do this, I'll have to write an if condition. So if is one of the control statement available. So this is where we are going to see if the condition is matching. If yes, then do this. If it is not matching, then do something else. Now to do this, again, we are going to start writing the if condition. Now in other languages, you have to use compulsory that parenthesis. So you say something like parenthesis, you say curly bracket, and this is how you generally write the code in other languages, not in Python. In Python, when you want to do this, you can simply start writing the condition as it is. So there is no parenthesis required. Now get it one more time. I'm saying the parenthesis is not required. Even if you add it, it's not going to change anything. So if you want, you can add it, but again, it's optional. So you may say something like age is greater than 20. If it is greater than 20, then do something else here. So probably you may say age is greater than 20 like this, or you may say age is greater than 20 like this. This is kind of conventional. So when you are in Python, you may not use parentheses. And this is again a valid convention in Python. Now, please understand this point here. When you are in other languages, for example, if you are in C or other languages, you say if condition, and then you open a curly bracket and you close a curly bracket. And in between this, you write the code. So I'll say code here. This is a general way to create a code block or statement block. This is a block. A block is nothing but collection of different statements. So probably whatever operations you want to perform, whatever steps you want to take, you put those steps right inside this opening curly bracket and closing curly bracket. This is generally called as a code block, and this code block can be created in other languages by opening and closing curly bracket. So this is generally the case in other languages, not in Python. In Python, when you want to do something like this, you have to go back here and say colon. So there is no curly bracket, there is a colon. And whenever you are going for the next statement inside the code block, you have to go to the next line and you have to put a right indentation. As I said last time, if you can recall, in one of the slides, I mentioned that Python heavily depends on indentation. So there is no curly bracket here. You have to use the indentations. You may use a single space, multiple spaces, or a tab. It's up to you, but indentation is mandatory. Again, there is no curly bracket. This is not a valid code block in Python. If you want to create a code block, you have to start using colon, and then you have to put a indentation on the very next statement. All those indentations will create a block. So for example, if I use an indentation here, and if I say something like print age is greater than 20, for example, again, maybe I'll say print, inside if block. So this is how we can write the code. Notice that in both the statements, I'm adding indentation. That means both these statements are the part of my if block. If I remove the indentation, that simply means now if is having only one statement in the block, that is this, and this is not inside the if block. So please get this thing. For the newcomer, Python is a little bit different than the others. I'm not saying difficult, it's a little bit different. You have to get used to this. I mean, generally when you are coming from different languages, then it becomes a little bit more time to digest this concept. You generally start with curly brackets, and then you expect that in this language also it should be a valid condition, or it should be a valid code block. Not anymore. I mean, this is not the language where we are using curly brackets. This is the language which is heavily dependent on the indentation, and that's the reason indentation is going to be very important. Fortunately, when we are using PyCharm, all the things will kind of done automatically for us. In a sense, when you are using PyCharm, the moment you put colon and press enter, PyCharm automatically puts the indentation for you. So don't change that. Rather, it's a good thing that PyCharm is doing it automatically. If you're using other editors, then you have to do it on your own. But again, we are also dependent on PyCharm, so it can save too much of our time. So we hopefully will not get any kind of errors like this. So please remember, this is a valid code block. And if you're not following the indentation, like if you are doing something like this is not a valid way to write the code. You see that here I'm getting an error. Here it says this is not a valid statement. Here it is giving me a red color underline. That means this is not a valid statement because the indentations are not matching. So either you put that completely on the left hand side, which is matching with if, or you put one indentation tab, and then you can say this print is matching with this print. If you put one indentation label, then it makes the statement as a part of if block. And if you remove that indentation, it makes that statement out of the if block, or maybe it's not a part of if block anymore. So this is how the code block works in case of Python. So get this one. This is very important, and it's not only for if condition. Wherever you need a code block, for example, once we are done with this, we are going to go with something like a function, or after that we are going to look at the different type of loops. In every single time you have to create a code block, and whenever the code block is required, you have to follow the indentation. Okay, the colon is the way we are kind of creating a code block. So this is where you can say the code block starts, and whenever you are following the indentation, this is how it is kind of moving all those statements into the if block there. Okay, so how does the block end? The block never ends on its own. The moment you start writing the next statement by changing the indentation label, for example, maybe I can say this statement, this is out of the if block. So this is how we can say the block starts right here and the block ends with this statement here. So probably you are kind of bit curious, like where it starts and where it ends. It starts at the colon and it ends at the last statement where we are following the indentation. You can use a single space, multiple spaces, or a tab. It's up to you. But whenever you are using it, for example, if I say one space, absolutely fine. Just make sure that you are following that one space across all the statements you want to make the part of that if block. Then and only then it will be kind of giving you the right information, or it will work for you. If you're not following the indentation, if here if I say one space, here if I say two spaces, or here if I say one tab, this is not going to work. This is not the way to write the code. This works in other languages like this. I have seen so many code from different developers and different students, like they generally do not follow the indentation. This is something the code they generally write in other languages like C or C++. There it works, but here it's not the case. Here, whenever you are writing the code using indentation, it's not optional, it is mandatory. In other languages, you may or you may not follow the indentation. Here, if you don't follow the indentation, your code simply does not work. Forget about making it work or not, it will not even compile. I hope I mentioned yesterday, like Python is both compiled and interpreted language. Unless it is compiled, it will not be able to interpret. And unless it interprets, you will not be able to see the output. So having indentation in place is kind of important. Not only important, it's mandatory. If you don't follow the indentation, your code will not work. Get this from day one so that you will not make these kind of mistakes later on, because later on the things will become a little bit complicated. So at that time, you should not again bother about the indentation or the spaces here. So if you get any kind of error there, just make sure that you are following the right indentation level. Okay. Now again, as I said earlier, it can be a tab, it can be single space, it can be multiple spaces. It's up to you. But whatever you are using, just follow it across all the statements you want to make them part of this if block. Okay. So that is how it goes. In this case, what I'm trying to say here is, if the age is greater than 20, I want to write this if block. But if I want to say I want to add an else block as well, not a big deal. I can come back here and I can say else, again, colon, and then we can say, maybe I'll say this is inside the if or else block, like this. And again, I'll say that because we are in the else block, the age should be less than 20. So I'll say age is less than 20. That's how it goes. So basically you are writing an if block and then else block. And even if you are using any of these blocks, adding my indentation is kind of mandatory. This is how it goes. Okay. So this is the way we are kind of writing the code. Let me make it 30. Let's see what does it do, whether it goes to if block or else block, and then we'll verify it. Okay, it goes inside that if block. It's going inside the if block because age is 30, which means it is a greater than 20. Of course, yes. And you see that irrespective of age, you are getting this statement executed because this one is out of the if block, if and else block, because now we are having the else block as well. I can say it is out of the if and else block. Let me make that age 10 and I want to see whether it is really working. You see, it is going inside the else block. The age is less than 20, which is true because the age value is 10. And this is out of if and else block, naturally, because this is not following the same indentation level as that of the if and else. If I, by mistake, if I put one tab, that means this statement will be now the part of else block. Just check it out. This one, it says inside else block, age is less than this one, and it also executes this statement because we are inside the else block. But the moment I change this to 34, example, one more time, and if I say run, you see that it is going inside if block, age is greater than 20. This statement is not getting executed because I put one indentation level which made that statement a part of else block. You can add any number of enter new line characters here, or you can press enter many times here, doesn't matter. Still, this is the part of last block I opened right here on line number 50. So whenever it follows the indentation, there it will say the statement is a part of the same block. I hope you are getting it. Okay. If don't follow the, how do we see the, okay. So now the question is answered, Dipanjan, I guess. Between indentation is only used within the line, or it is between the lines, not between the lines. Here it doesn't matter. Here you are adding a space, here adding a, it really doesn't matter because there is no content on these lines. These lines are empty, so here it really doesn't matter. What matters here is when you are creating a next statement of statement, in a sense, next code, there having an indentation matters a lot. Okay, so probably Vipin, that answers your question. Good. Okay, Chandrakant, indentation level is if and block must be same or it may be different. Fortunately, when we are doing this if and block, it's kind of automatically handled by PyCharm. But yes, it's kind of important to use a same kind of indentation across the block. It doesn't matter whether it is a one tab, single tab, or multi tabs, or multiple spaces. It really doesn't matter. So here, if I say that this is one block, this is another block, you may say multiple spaces or tab or single space or tab. This really doesn't matter. This creates one block, this creates one block. But again, this looks really odd, isn't it? So don't do it. I mean, fortunately, we are in PyCharm and PyCharm handles this for us, but this can be done. I mean, you can have if and block, if and else block with a different indentation level. See, what is important here is like a block statement should have the same indentation. It doesn't matter whether the if block or whether the else block you are writing. Ultimately, all the statements within one block should follow the same level of indentation. Okay. I hope that answers your question, Chandrakant. Okay. Is there any else if Python? Guys, wait. I know you are very much curious about learning the things in one single day. This is not how it goes. Even if you ask these kind of questions, I will either ignore them or I will say that just wait because the things are coming. If you want, I can show you every single thing at the same time. This is not fruitful, guys. So wait, hold your patience. I know you are too excited, but hold your excitement. We have to chew the, okay, leave it. So just do it in step-by-step manner. Otherwise, it's of no use, okay? Anyways, so what is that? Sangram, I think, yeah, we have the nested condition. This is how we are going to do it. If not following the indentation, is it only the way to get out of the block? Yes. If you are not following the indentation, in a sense, if you are not using the same indentation, the next statement will be out of that block. That is it. So this is the way we can create a block in Python. Let me say that this is one if condition. This is another else block of it. And probably we can see if else block is written here. But right now, when I run my code, it just checks only whether the age is greater than 20 or not. Actually, I want to check if the age is greater than 20. At the same time, I want to see the age is less than 60 as well. So how do we do this? Now to do this, now this is important. You should put one bracket here. You should put another bracket because now we are talking about two different conditions. So age is less than 60. So age is greater than 20 and age is less than 20. Age is less than 60 is what I want to check. And in between this, I want to see the AND condition. Now, when I say AND condition, that means I want to make sure that the age is fitting in the valid range. Because if it is not, then this is not a valid age for a company employee. So if I'm taking an input from user for an employee, then the age should be between 20 to 60. That's what my requirement is. If you want, you can make it as a 25 as well. It doesn't matter. But what matters here is we are checking a range. If the range is what it is following, maybe we can say, maybe I'll say valid age for an employee. This is what we can say here. So if the age fits in this range, 25 to 60, I can say that that's a valid age. And maybe I can say this is invalid age for an employee. So this is how we can write the code. Make sure that you are getting the point here. There is no ampersand like other languages. Here it is something like and. And means it's kind of checking the logical and. I hope you know the rule. For and, it should be 1 and 1. So maybe I'll say true and true is equals to true. Rest of them are equals to false. In a sense, true and false is equals to false. I hope you know this, but anyways, let me clear that part here. Next one is true false. Then this is a false true. You may say that this is the false and true, and still this is false. And again, false and false is again going to give us the false. So basically, when you're talking about the and works like this. If the conditions are true, if both the conditions are true, then and only then we get true. Otherwise, we get false. This is how the and condition works. I think it's better. I can add that condition here. So maybe I'll say the rule is this. So the rule is this. When we are writing the code, just follow this rule. True and true is equals to true. Rest of them is equals to false. Very good. Okay, so that's fine. That's fine. So this is the rule that we have to follow. And this is how the and really works. Very, very simple. So probably I'm writing a very simple code and I'm saying this is the age greater than 25 and the age less than 60. It works. Otherwise, I will see that the age is not valid. So here it goes. It says inside if block, this is the valid age of employee. But what's the age right now? Age is 30. It's within the limit. That's the reason it is working. Let's say I'm making my age value to 70, which is not in that range. It's not fitting in that range. So when I say run, it goes inside the else block and it says that this is not a valid age for employee. Or maybe I can say, hey, just take a retirement now. You are 70 years old. So there is no point you are working for a company now. Anyway, seems like it is working. So this is one way to write the code, and one way in the sense, one way to check the code, whether it is following the condition or not. So probably this is one example where we are using the and. Now let us go to the another example. This is the or. Now probably in this case, I can simply copy and paste it first and say this is the rule that is a little bit different than the other. So this is or, this is or, this is again or, and this is again or. I'll change the, I'll update the PDF file on your so-called notes and later I'll share it with you. So I'm updating few things as we go, and then I'm going to create this PDF file again and I'll share it with you later on your WhatsApp. You see here, when you are talking about the or, that's again a generic rule. Whenever you are getting both the statements true, then you are getting true. When you are getting one statement true, other statement false, you are getting true, still true. So false and true will give you again true. And finally, only false and false will give you false. That's the difference between and or. So basically in and, you are getting true only when both the conditions are true. And here in case of or, you are getting false only when both the conditions are false. Even if one of the conditions is true, you still will get the true in case of or. So that's a little bit difference between the age, between the and something like an or. Okay. Okay, so when you are talking, okay, who's that? Tanaya, yes. In that case, even if you're not using something like a parenthesis, still it works. But you know what? When you are doing something like this, right now it may work. But when you are doing something like this, you are changing the precedence for the operators. We'll talk about the precedence later. But right now, this may work or may not work, depending on what type of operation you are performing. It's a very good idea that when you are having multiple conditions, that they should be wrapped around the parenthesis. So Tanaya, this is not mandatory, but this is recommended. Otherwise, it may change the value, it may change the interpretation of the statement. Okay, that's the reason why we are doing it. Okay, so probably when you are talking about something like and, we check that the value is greater than 25 and the value is greater than 60, then and only then we are kind of saying this is the valid age. Maybe I can just copy paste here and I say that this is or. Or means if the age is greater than 25, this will be a kind of a condition and we'll say that it's a valid age. And even if it is less than 60, I'll say that still it is a valid age. So probably any age will work here because you are saying greater than 25 and it will work here. Age is less than 60, again it will work here. So again, when you are talking about and or, important stuff to notice here is we are not using ampersand and we are not using the or symbol or pipe symbol. Here we are writing or, and here we are writing and. This is exactly similar to all the other all the other SQL type languages. I hope you might have came across with the database, and if you are, then there also we write the something similar condition, and or. So this is the difference between and or. Okay. Yes, again you can have and or together as well. Snehal, yes, there are many examples coming later where we have to do this, but right now I'm just showing you the syntax to use and syntax to use or. Okay, so there are many conditions where we have to write the code like this. So just see what is the syntax and how it works. Okay. Utpal, you are getting an error from operator import blah blah blah. Import error, cannot import the item getter on the operator. There is a problem in your code. From operator import item getter as. Can you put the code there, Utpal? Let me check what exactly you are writing. Come, who's that? Kshitij. Okay, sorry. The condition, the or condition is printing both the blocks if we are taking age is equals to 70. Yes, you are getting age is equals to 70 and it is printing this one because you are talking about age is equals to 70 greater than 25. That's the reason why it is working. Okay. So probably or will work when you are having the one of the condition is true. That's what I said. For any block, for any age, it is going to print this one. So if I say age is equals to 70, it's going back here. It's printing both the blocks. That's what you're thinking, but you are writing this code as well. You know, just comment this part and then run, and you will see that it is going in the if block and say it is a valid age. Probably who is saying that? I think you are getting the point there, right? So you are saying both the blocks are getting executed. Kshitij, it's not because of this one, it's because we are running both and or. So just comment this part and it will work. Okay, that's fine. So anyways, you can see that how to write the and or. There are many conditions where we have to write this condition. We have to write these operators. So make sure that you are getting this. Okay, now let me close this one. This is a quick example of how to use and or. Now let me go back to the next example here, and I want to write something similar code, but let's see what is a little bit different here. Pay attention. I have a question for all of you guys. Now imagine that I have some data for different people, different persons. For example, let's say there is one person whose age is equals to, let's say 18, for example. Now I want to check if the person having age is equals to 18 is eligible for voting. So that's what I want to check. How do I check that? Now to check this, probably I'll say this is age 1, and here I want to see if the person is eligible for voting. To do this, we'll have to say if age 1 is greater than or equals to 18. If it is the case, then I will say this person is eligible for voting. I'll say this person can vote or eligible for voting, whatever. Otherwise, I want to say this person is not eligible for voting. I'll say this person cannot vote. That's it. So basically, when you are talking about a condition like this will simply check if the person having an age equals to 18 is eligible for voting or not. So probably if I say run, of course, because the person is of 18 years of old, the person can go for voting. So that's what the condition we have written here. Okay. Omkar, you are saying instructor code shared by instructor. It seems like the session is not yet started or expired. Please check with your instructor. Close that browser tab and open that in another browser. It will work, Omkar. And who's that? Yash, just close that and open that in a separate tab. It will work. Okay. If not, just tell me. I'll see what needs to be done there. Okay. Okay, so exactly, reload, simple reload will work. Sometimes what happens is your internet connection gets fluctuated, and because of that, you lose the connection. So it might happen. It's okay. Just refresh the page. It will work. Okay. Sunbeam Portal, there are too many pop-ups. No way. I have not shown any kind of pop-up there. Just tell me if you are saying, if you are getting any pop-up, just take a screenshot and send it to me or share it across with me. I'll check, Ajinkya. Okay. Okay, so coming back here, I have an age 1, and I'm checking that and saying like this person can vote. Imagine that I have another person's details. This person is of, let's say 15 years old, and I want to check if this person is also eligible for voting. What am I supposed to do? I think I just need to copy this code and paste it here, because the logic is going to remain same. The age is going to change, but the logic is going to remain same. So probably here also I want to say write the same logic. The only thing which is changed here is like we are checking for second person. So probably if I say run, I can literally come back here and do it. It seems like the first person can vote and the second person cannot vote. Naturally, because second person is below 18. Now let me come back and say that there is another person whose age is, let's say, 26. Now I want to check whether this person can vote. So probably I can say age 3, and if I try to run that code, you see that first person can vote, second person cannot vote, third person can vote. I'm getting the right result. The result is right, the output is what I'm expecting, but do you see any problem in the code? Anyone can tell me like what exactly the problem here is? Things are working. I can see the output here, but what is wrong with it? Exactly, code redundancy. Code redundancy, in a sense, you are literally writing exact same lines of code every single time you want to check whether the person can vote. So this is not a good sign of writing a code. So basically, if you are repeating the code, you might encounter many issues. So probably tomorrow, let's see the simplest example. Tomorrow, if you want to change the message, the person can vote, I want to change that statement to saying the person is eligible for voting. Can you see that? I have to go in every single if condition and then I have to change it. Like I have to come back here and say this person, let's say, is eligible for voting. This is something that we have to do it in every single if condition. So I'll have to copy this to this, and if I don't do it in one of them, because I might forget that there are too many conditions I've written so far, and if I forget that, it will be not consistent. So in one case it will say the person is eligible for voting, and another case it says the person can vote. So this is not consistent. There are many issues with this code. One of the issues is like the code is redundant, and because the code is redundant, it might give you some headache when you want to manage it, when you want to change it. So this is not a good idea. So what's a good idea then? The good idea here is, instead of writing this code again and again, I would recommend to write it only once and then call that code only, call that code as and when you need it. So this is what I want to achieve. So how do I do this? To do this, I think we should move this code into a block of code which I can call for all these ages. Right now, this is the block of a code. You see that a block of a code is nothing but multiple statements. You can say these multiple statements are constructed as one block. So this is the block, and I want to execute this block for age 1, for age 2, and for age 3. So how do I do this then? To do this, I'll keep this example as it is for your reference. We are going to come back and we are going to fix this problem. But before we fix this problem, we have to come across with another condition or another concept or another construct in case of Python, which is called as a function. So basically my requirement here is I want to use this block over and over. I don't want to write it. I want to use it over and over. I want to reuse it over and over. To reuse it, I have to put that inside a function. So what is a function? A function is simply a block which can be called multiple times, a block of a code which can be reused. How can you reuse it? You can reuse it by naming that block. Right now, there is no name associated with the block, so I cannot call it. Actually, whenever you want to call something, you have to know the name of that person, you have to name of that entity. So like if I want to call you, I should know the name so that I can use the name and I can call you. Fine. Here also the same case applies. If I want to call this block, I should have a name, a unique name associated with that block, with which I can say, hey, just go ahead and call your statements and just tell me whether the person is eligible for voting. So this is what I want to do. How do I do that then? To do this, whatever code you have written here, I have to put that inside a function. So when you are writing a function, see how it can be written in Python. It's a little bit different, and it's little bit having a different concept as well. So this is not exactly like what you must have seen in other languages. Do not compare Python with other languages. You will make the things complicated. So Python is a different language, completely different language. Let's see, how does it work? Now in Python, whenever you want to write a function, the very first thing that you have to start is something called as a def. The def here stands for define. So basically what we are doing here is like we are defining a function. So this is the function definition. There is no way I can separate out the function declaration and definition. In other languages like C or C++, it might be possible to separate them, to put them in a separate .h or the header file, and you can reuse that. But in Python, this is not the way. In Python, you cannot just separate a function declaration and function definition. A function definition itself is having its declaration as well. So here we are kind of defining a simple function. So how do you define a function? Let's see here. You have to start with the def. Def stands for definition. You are defining a function here, and then the function name. So my function name is something like a function 1, for example. Naturally, the function will have some parameters later. So to make the room for parameters, I'm going to use the parenthesis, opening parenthesis and closing parenthesis, and then we again want to create a block of statement. Remember, a block of a statement in Python can be created by using colon, and then we have to put again different indentation. So different indentation than what you have started earlier. So there was no indentation at all on line number 4. That's the reason why we are taking one level of indentation, and we will write the code which you want that functions part would be, or you want to make that functions body with. So probably I want to make that functions body with 2 statements. Let me say this is inside function 1, and I also want to say that this is the functions body. That's it. This is the way we can do it. Now see that we are writing a function with the keyword called as a def, and once the def is there, you can see whatever comes after it will be the name of the function. So the def stands for definition. You are defining a function 1, which is not having any parameter, and that's the reason this type of function is called as a this function is called as a parameterless function. So parameterless function is a function which does not accept any parameter. So that's how it goes. Parameterless function, in this case function 1, is accepting no parameter, which is simple to understand, simple to implement as well. Okay, so coming back here, I can say this is my function. Now again, I'm going to run this code, and I'm expecting that inside function 1, and this is function body. But if I look at my console, it's not doing anything here. Why is it not calling my function? I mean, I've written the function here, right? But it's not doing it. It's not calling that function. It's not printing that statement inside function 1 or inside function body. Exactly. And this is how it is kind of done in other languages as well. When you are writing the function, when you are defining a function, it will not get called automatically. This is the function definition. If you really want to make that function get called, or make that function executing its code, then you have to make a call to that function. So this is the function call. How do you make a call to that function? This is normal. You can come back here, you can use the function name, and you can say that this is the function that I want to call right now. So I'll say that call the function 1, and the moment I say this, it is going to make a call to that function. Very simple. So probably when I say run, you see that now it calls that function. It says inside function 1, and it also says that this is the function body. Very good. So now you see the function 1, we have defined it here, and the function 1, we have called it here, and this is the way it works. Okay. Okay. Yes, that really is working. Hopefully you see that the function 1 is a parameterless function, and the function 1 is making a call to that body, and it is executing it. Now I want to move further, and I want to write a couple of other type of questions. See this. This is the function which is not accepting any parameter, but it may be possible, and more often, that you need a function which will accept the parameter, at least one parameter. So I'm going to write a function here, which is again def function 1, function 2, and this function I want to accept at least one parameter. So I will say this is a function 2. Again, this is a function definition. I'll write it one more time because we are doing it for the first time. This is again the function definition, and in this function definition, I want that function to accept at least one parameter. Maybe the parameter name is something like a param. So this is how we can define it. Don't ask the question like what is the data type of this param, because you know the answer. If you can recall, yesterday I mentioned it, there Yeah, I mean, in Python, there is no way you can specify the data type of any variable, and parameter is a kind of a variable which will be visible only within that function. So this can be considered as a variable, and because you are writing the code in Python, it's not possible for you to decide, or it's not possible for you to explicitly declare that variable with its data type. It's not possible. So the data type will be given by the Python. The data type will be decided by the Python based on the value you are going to put inside that variable. So right now, this is the simplest syntax to create a parameterized function. Parameterized function. This is the function with which we can accept at least one parameter. So here I'm accepting a parameter called as a param. So again, I'm coming back inside this function and saying I'm inside function 2, inside function 2, right, function 2, and I want to also print the type and the value of that parameter. So we already have seen that yesterday. I'm going to use a f string because I want to print the value of a variable, and then I can say this is the param which is having the value, and the type is equals to, if you can recall, there is a function called as a type. Just call that function and pass the param. Let us see what is the code here, or what is the little bit different than the other languages. So how it is different than the other languages, just watch line number 21, the one which I'm going to write it now. Okay, so let's see. When you talk about this, when you're talking about that function 2, it accepts a parameter. But now before I make a call to that function, I need to decide what type of parameter should I pass. Because you see, there is no restriction. If you're writing code in other languages, then there you say like, hey, I want to pass an integer parameter. For example, I would have said in other languages like C, saying void function 2, and I would have said something like an integer param. Now, if I say something like this in other languages like C, then while calling the function, I will not be able to decide what type of parameter, because I know the function accepts only integer parameter. That means I have to pass only integer values. I cannot just pass there as a string value. It's not possible. It's not possible because this function, let's say function 2, which is written right here on 16 and 17, it's not going to accept anything other than an integer. So other languages, there is no confusion. But here in Python, it's a little bit confusing, like what parameter should I pass when I call that function? Okay, now let us try a couple of things. See how it is going to resolve the problem, resolve the issue that you are facing right now. Here I'm making a call to that function, function 2. It is accepting a parameter. So to start with, let me try passing 10. Now probably you know that 10 means it should be an integer because it's a whole number. So let us see what happens now. Can I make a call to that function with value 10? Let's give it a try, give it a shot. Say run this code, and oh, look at that. It is calling that function, function 2. It is passing that 10 for that parameter, which means the param here will get the value 10. Whatever value you are passing here, that will be passed as a parameter, and that parameter will point to a value 10. Now, because it is pointing a value 10, naturally you can see that this becomes a integer data type variable, and that's the reason why you see the data type of that parameter is changed to integer. Okay, so this is the way you can do it. Now watch it one more time. Let me comment this right now, and I'll say function 2, and I can say 10.56. Again, when I say 10.56, you know that this is not a whole number, this is a decimal number. And if I say run, probably you can see that it is calling that function 2. It is passing the value for that parameter as a 10.56. Because it is 10.56, you see that it is kind of changing the data type equals to float. If I come back here and say, hey, the parameter's value is equals to 10.56, that simply means it has to be a float. Okay, let's come back here and try to call that function one more time with the value something like Steve. Now again, when I say Steve, that means the param here will get the value as a Steve, and because the value Steve is a kind of double quoted or single quoted string, this has to be a string or str. So when I say run, naturally the function is getting called, the param is getting a value Steve, and the data type of that param is nothing but str. It's nothing but str because that is a string. guess what? I can still make a call to that function with another data type, and that the one which is remaining here is something like a true. Again, I can come back here and I can say that param here will get the value like true, and because it is true, the data type is going to be Boolean. You see, now this is a Boolean. What do you mean by that? Or what I want to prove here? I just want to prove here the only one thing, that when you are writing the function, there is no way I can force caller to pass a single type of value. Here, whenever the caller is going to make a call to that function, the caller will decide what type of value he wants to pass. And here I can say that I can pass a number or something like an integer, I can pass a decimal, I can pass a something like a string and whatnot. So this is an integer, probably this is a float, and this one is a Steve, that's a string, str, and that is true, that is nothing but a bool. That's it. So being a caller, I will decide what parameter I need to pass, and every single time the function got called, every single time I saw the function parameter was changing its data type based on the value you are passing. So last time I passed the value 10, it converted itself as an integer. It changed the value, it changed the data type of that to float when it was 10.56. Again, it changed its data type to something like a str when the value was Steve, and it again changed the value to Boolean or data type to Boolean when the value was true. So this is how it goes to a kind of a different direction. It goes to a different dimension. It's not what you have seen earlier in other languages. It's completely different. That is what I said earlier as well. When you talk about a Python language, it's a completely dynamic language. Dynamic means this: whenever you are passing the data, dynamically at the runtime, it checks the data type of this variable and it changes that to according to the value you are passing. So it checks that, oh, it's a 10, that means it's a whole number, it assigns an integer. It says, oh, 10.56, what is that? It's a decimal, means it's float. If it is double quoted or single quoted string, that has to be a string or str, and if it is a true or false, yes, that will change it to something like bool, right? So this is the way it is going to do the job. Okay, so probably I hope you are getting this point. I hope it is a little bit different than other languages, but still it is manageable, because here in Python, this is the way it works. This is how cookies cook. That's generally the term we use to say that this is how it works, you know. So that is the way it works in Python. Little bit different, but when you start writing the code in Python, you will get used to it. It takes a little bit time to adjust the things, but once you get adjusted, I can bet on that you will start falling in love with Python. It happened with me as well. So way back when I started my career with Python, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it so much that my email address, I'm using it from almost like 12 years. It's pythoncpp@gmail.com, where the Python and C++, both of them are kind of combined. It's very, very, very simple language, you know. Anyway, so when you talk about something like this, I hope you now know how to write a function without having any parameter, how to write a function with one parameter. Now let me continue further, and I want to create one more function with two parameters. Let's assume that I want to add two numbers. So I'll say that this is my parameter P1. I'll say parameter P2. What I want to do here, nothing but an addition. So I'll go for here and say addition is equals to P1 plus P2. As simple as that. By the way, before I say anything, let me just come back and say print I am inside, just to make the thing clear that we are inside that add function. Inside add function, and here I'm trying to add both these numbers. Again, coming back here, I'm going to say print and say this is the print addition is equals to addition. As simple as that. Let me make a call to that function. By the way, this is also a parameterized function. Parameterized means this is also a function which is accepting at least one parameter. I mean, here we are accepting multiple, but at least one parameter you are accepting. So it is also a parameterized function. Good. Now I want to make a call to that function and say, hey, add value 10 and 30. Let's see what is the answer here. Naturally, you know the answer, 10 plus 30 is equals to 40. Answer is not important. The important thing is we are passing parameters to P1 and P2 from left to right, and the value 10 goes to P1, value 30 will goes value 30 goes to P2, and here P1 and P2, both of them are giving me the value. Okay. Okay, now hopefully I mentioned that F couple of times yesterday. Probably a few of you are not able to recall it. Let me try to explain it one more time. When you say F here, F means it is a formatted string. When I say formatted string, whenever you are using a variable in curly brackets, the value of it will be replaced here. So when I say addition, look at what I'm trying to get the answer here is. I'm saying that it is addition equals to, it is replacing the value of addition. It just because of that F. If I do not use that F, it is going to print it as exactly as I've written here. So it says curly bracket addition. It does not replace the value of that variable because we have not used a something like F here. So the moment you add F, it changes that statement to get the value of addition here. That is the significance of F. Okay. Okay, so probably this is the way we are kind of doing the job, and probably you have to again get used to the way we are printing the values using the string by using F. Believe me, it's very simple. Okay, so when you are talking about something like this, it is kind of, yes, someone is asking that question, Arish, what calling convention it uses? Python function uses CDCCL, or you can say simple C calling convention. CDCCL is the default one, and this is again this is again used by C, and that's the reason I'm going to come back here and I'll mention this right here as well. In case of Python, function uses the C calling convention. This is called as a C or CDCL. Maybe I'll say this is the C calling convention. Now there are a couple of things here. It's not exactly similar to C, but it follows the C calling conventions by default. And there is a kind of a explanation for this as well. I hope you can recall yesterday I mentioned a couple of things about compilers, C Python compilers. When I say Python compilers, there are many compilers, but the one which we are using and the one which is very standard is going to be a C Python. And when I say C Python is developed in C. Naturally, it has to follow the C calling convention. Okay, so probably that answers your question. Who was that? Adesh, that answers your question. Okay. Okay, so Fayaz, you are saying if you pass one integer and one other float. Wait, I'll talk about that in a moment. But right now you see that this is how it is working, and probably it is kind of following the C calling convention, means from left to right. And that's the reason why you are getting P1 value or P1 variable or P1 parameter with value 10 and P2 parameter with value 30, left to right. That's how it goes. Okay. Okay. So now we can just go back and try to write a couple of other examples as well. Tanaya, yes, I will talk about more about the runtime and the dynamic, of course, but not right now. There are few more examples where we have to come across with that concept one more time. Let's see all the examples and then we'll club them together and we'll talk about the dynamic and the final runtime later. Okay, no problem. Siddharth, in a large application, isn't it quite difficult to understand what the method expecting before calling the method? I have to go through the full code. Absolutely, I can understand that. So to solve this kind of problem, not only Siddharth, maybe almost all of you must be having a question in your mind, like looking at this, how would I notice, how would I know that what type of parameter should I pass? You know, so if I'm calling this function, I'm literally clueless. What should I pass here? Because if I pass 10 and 30, it's giving me the value at 40. But if I say 10 and something like a test, of course, I don't know what parameters I need to pass. So if I pass 10 and 20, the application will simply crash. You see, it says that process finished with exit code 1. Exit code 1 means your function got exited or your code got exited with error code. Error code, in a sense, the exit code greater than 0 or exit code non-zero is called as an error code. So this is kind of exit code with 1, means your application crashed. Why it crashed? It crashed because at the time of adding two parameters, P1 and P2, it is kind of adding 10 with string, which is not possible. So it says unsupported operand times for plus, integer and str. First, is it a valid way to do it? Calling function with any parameters is kind of allowed in Python. But when we are doing something like this, will it work or not? It all depends on the logic you have written. It all depends on the code you have written. In my case, I simply try to add them together without bothering about the data types, and that's the reason why it is not working. So probably I can fix it, not right now. We will fix that later when we go to OOP, because there we will check the data type of it, and there we will have another keyword is instance of, and there we will check what is the correct way to check whether the data is following with the particular data type or not. So we'll do that later, but right now this is a valid way to call a function. Whether it will work or not, it's up to you. So I was saying, like, looking at this, I'm completely clueless. Like, what should I pass the parameters here? Should I pass integer integer? Should I pass integer float? Should I pass float float? What should I pass here? See here, maybe I can pass another, say add hello and say Python. So you see, I'm passing two strings. Can I add two strings? Of course, yes. When I say run, you will see the final answer as hello Python. So basically, when I pass two strings, instead of giving me mathematical addition, it's giving me a kind of string concatenation. I mentioned that yesterday as well. So probably when I'm coming back here, and if I pass something like add, maybe I'll say 10.50 or 10.40 plus 50.0 or 50.7, whatever it is, 45.7, it gives me an answer as 56.1. That means it's working for integer integer, it's working for string string, it is working for float float. It might not work for string integer, it might not work for float string. So the combination, whether it will work or not, it depends on what type of code you have written. So this is not wrong. This can be done. This is a valid way to write the code, and whether it will work or not, it depends on the line you have written here inside your function. I hope you are getting the point here. There is nothing wrong in the code. This is absolutely what we are expecting. Of course, whether it will work or not, that depends on the code, the logic you have written, but there is nothing wrong in the code. So I was saying, like, I am feeling literally clueless. What should I pass here? To solve this kind of problem, Siddharth, you asked that question, so I'm just pointing a finger towards you. So to solve these kind of problems, watch what I'm trying to do here. I'll keep that function as it is for now, and I'm going to create one more function. I'll say that this is function 3, and when you are writing a function to solve the problem, like what type of parameters you are passing, what that function is going to do, what the data type of parameters you are expecting, and all stuff like that, you generally will put that inside the function's help. Now, where should I add the function's help? Now, in other languages like C or C++, you can come here, you can add a slash star, slash star, slash, and you can add the help about that function. Not anymore. In Python, there is a separate way, and that's a standard way that you can use in Python in order to solve this kind of problem. Now, to solve this kind of problem, every function by default does not start with the code. Every function by default start with triple double quotes. I hope I mentioned that yesterday. The triple double quotes here is considered as a multi-line comment, or sorry, not multi-line comment, multi-line string. Now, this is a special appearance of multi-line string. In this context, whenever you are writing a block, and inside the block, whenever you are writing triple double quotes, this, in case of function or in case of a block, is called as documentation string, or in short, it's called as a doc string. You are in Python, and in Python, every function will not generally start with the code. It will start with something called as a doc string. What's the use case of dot string, or what's the use of it, or where should you use it? I'll show you that example. But see, this case or this code or maybe this string I'm writing here is called as a doc string or documentation string. You write here, what does it do? Probably I'll say this is a test function. What does it return? It returns nothing. So you don't expect anything from that function. That's how it goes. Now, if I just come back and say, hey, I just want to say that print inside function. Watch what happens here. I've written a function, function 3, and I started that function with a documentation string or doc string. I'm going to come back here and call that function. The function will get executed normally. There is nothing wrong, or there's nothing different than what we have seen earlier. The only change here is now the function has started with something like a triple double quotes. The triple double quotes is going to give me a chance to write multi-line code or multi-line string, and that multi-line string, which will be the first statement, the first line of your function's code block, is called as a documentation string, or it's also called as a doc string. Now, what's the use of it? Maybe I can just come back and say, see, I'm going to call that function function 3. So probably when I say I want to call that function 3, I want to see what does it do. I want to see what parameters it accepts and so on and so forth. So probably I can just make sure that I can get that help out of it, and then I can call it. So I can go to print and I can say function 3. Do not call the function. Say function 3 dot underscore underscore doc underscore underscore. Welcome to Python. In Python, whenever you are writing a function, you can use that function, say dot, and then say underscore underscore doc underscore underscore. Now, what is this? The function 3 or any function name dot underscore underscore doc underscore underscore will print the function's documentation string. So probably when I say run, you will see that in this context, I am getting the documentation about that function. So the documentation says, this is a test function. This is going to return nothing. So I will not expect anything out of it. I will not say that, okay, this function is returning anything, because I know it already has mentioned that the function is not returning anything. So this is the help about that function. This is going to help me a lot to see what type of parameters I need to pass, what type of function am I calling, what is going to return, and what that function is made for. Okay, let me come back to this function and try to solve the problem. So I think Siddharth, you were asking that question. Let me come back here and I can solve that problem by using triple double quotes here. Watch what happens now. Because you are in PyCharm, I can say enter and it automatically creates this code block for me. Now, what is that function made for? Maybe I'll say this function will add 2 numbers or 2 parameters. So what you're expecting here, parameter 1, maybe I'm expecting this is an integer parameter. So I'll say integer first parameter, first argument. You decide what you want your user to pass. Second, again, I'm expecting second integer, second parameter, integer second parameter, something like this. And then what does it return? It returns nothing. So it returns nothing because we have not used any return statement yet. So probably what we have done here is we are expecting 2 parameters from that function. Both of them should be integer. That's what we are expecting as a function developer. And then we are adding those 2 parameters, getting the addition out of it, and then we are printing that right here. When I want to make a call, this is again recommended. You are in Python. In Python, if you're not sure about what parameters you should pass to that function or whether that function is returning anything or not, you can just use the print, use that function name, say dot, and use underscore underscore doc underscore underscore, and probably here it shows the help about that function. It says this function will add 2 parameters. So I forgot to say s, 2 parameters. That's correct. Now the first parameter should be an integer, the second parameter should be an integer again, and it is going to return nothing. Now I know what parameter should I pass. So I can go ahead, pass the 2 parameters and say whether I'm getting the addition or not. Yes, I'm getting the addition. Now if I pass other than integer and if the function doesn't work, it's not the function's problem. It's not the developer's problem. It's the caller's problem, because caller is not following the rule. What's the rule? The caller already has seen that the function is accepting 2 integer parameters. So the caller should have passed only integers. If it is working for you by passing 2 strings or 2 floats, it's well and good. But these are not expected values by the developer. Developer was expecting only integer values, like integer first parameter, integer second parameter. And if that is working, that means there is no problem with the code. So again, whenever you are solving these kind of problems in Python, I hope you can see Python gives you too many simple ways to solve the problem, too many different clues about what code you are executing. So I hope, Siddharth, the question you were asking is answered here. This is very important question, and anyways, I was expecting it. If someone would have not asked the question, I would have again told you, but thanks for asking that question, Siddharth. I appreciate it. Because you asked the question, now probably people have seen like this is the real use case. Because you are calling the function and you are not getting the help about it, or you are kind of clueless about what parameters you are passing, whether the function is returning anything or not. Now you have solved that problem by using something like a docstring. By the way, because you are in Python and we are going to use too many such underscore underscore things later, just don't say underscore underscore doc underscore underscore. In Python, this is pronounced as a dunder doc. Dunder is the way to say that underscore underscore doc underscore underscore. So every time instead of saying underscore underscore doc underscore underscore, we generally say dunder doc. And it's not like only dunder doc. Have you seen that? When you say dot, you see there are many such dunder function, dunder attributes available. There is a dunder name, there is a dunder call, dunder class, dunder closure, dunder code, so on and so forth. There are many. We'll see not all of them, but a few of them later when we need them. Today we needed only one, so I used one. So this is dunder doc. Okay, so that's how it goes. I hope you are getting the point. I hope you now see the importance of having a kind of a doc string in every function. So Python recommends that you should write the function, or you should start the function with the doc string and then start writing your actual code. Then you start writing or start implementing your actual logic. This is how it goes. You have seen we have written a function which is not accepting any parameter. You are accepting one parameter here, and you are accepting multiple parameters, 2 or more parameters. Again, there is no change. This is how it goes. The function which I didn't show you is something called as a empty function, because right now we have seen all the functions, all the different type of functions. But what if I don't want to do anything with that function? In a sense, every function we have written so far is having at least one statement within it. So it is having two statements, it's having two statements, it's having a couple of more statements. But what if I want to create a function which is not having any of the statements within it? That is called as an empty function. How do I do this? To do this, I'm going to say this is a def, and I'll call it as an empty function. The function which is not doing anything is called as an empty function. Now, please see it. When I'm in, let's say, C or C++ or other languages, I could have done something like this, and I could have said this is an empty function. The function which is not having a body is kind of an empty function. But you know what? You are in Python, and in Python, you know that it's not possible to use any curly bracket like this. So if I start with something like a colon, and if I go back here, and if I leave this line blank, you are going to get an error. You're going to get an error because Python expects you to write at least one line of code inside your function. You started a block, it's your duty to write at least one line of code there. So how do I write an empty function then? Is it not possible to write an empty function in Python? Of course, yes, it is possible. And to make it possible, Python provides a keyword called as a pass. Pass means don't do anything. When I say pass, that means it is not going to do anything. So this function is not going to do anything. That's what do you mean by an empty function. Right now, the empty function is kind of useless for us, at least in this context. But believe me, when we go to object-oriented programming, this is going to play a very important role. This is the way we are going to solve a couple of different scenarios. So we will see the importance of empty functions later when we go to OP. At least for today, you know now like how to write an empty function, how to write a parameterless function, how to write parameterized function having one parameter, how to write parameterized function having multiple parameters. That's the way you can write a function in Python. I hope guys, all of you are on the same page, all of you are getting this, and I hope you're not having any problem. Okay. Let's see, there are a few questions. Let me answer quickly a few of them. Amarendra, you are asking how to create a multi-line comments. There is no way you can have multi-line comments like C or like C++. You have to keep on doing something like this. You know, this is the way you can do that. And you can see that in my code, I've written multiple comments starting with hash symbol. Okay, that's the way you can do it. Okay, Adesh, aborted. I don't know what you mean by that, aborted. Okay, if you're talking about a previous example, then fine, no problem. Parikshit, you are having a question here. I have opened up a different browser. It's showing me the message like the browser is not supported in the Google Chrome. Yes, it's only supported in Google Chrome. Please solve the problem. I'm not able to see the code blocks. Fine, we'll check. We'll take a look at it, Parikshit. Right now, we'll focus on this. Again, the code is not very big. Probably I'll check this by today and we'll see why it's not working. Okay, so give me a day. I'll check that. No problem. What is wrong with your code? Path, you are having code error. What is that error you are saying? Def add p1 p2 print inside close block addition equals to p1 p2 print f addition equals to addition. There is nothing wrong in your code. What is the problem, Path? Is it not working for you? What is the error you are getting? Can you just tell me the error you are getting? We'll see what is wrong with it. Okay, so probably think too many students. Yeah, that's fine. Siddharth, now this is good coding practice, like having a documentation. Exactly. I told you that earlier as well. Python is a language which is a kind of best of multiple worlds. Best of multiple worlds in the sense it is getting you, or it is forcing you to follow indentation. And believe me, again, when you are starting your career with Python like language, you never will write a bad code. I've seen people writing a bad code, not following indentation, not adding any comments. But when you start your career with the language like Python, believe me or not, your all other languages in your future you are going to learn will you will also write the indentation code there, because you will have a habit, and that's what the greatness of Python is. So it will teach you how to write the code, how, and rather how not to write the code as well. So it's a kind of advantage you are going to get here in Python. Yes, it's true. You are getting to know like what are the different good practices or the best practices in programming. Okay, but is there any way we can restrict the caller from sending an incorrect value? Yes, there is a way, but not right now. We will see that later in OOP world. Okay, so Siddharth, just hold your question. You will get the answer later. Tanya, you're saying, but why we did empty function? I'll tell you later. Right now, just see how to write it. I'll give you the importance. I'll show you the importance of this function later when we go to OOP. There are few things, again, I cannot show the examples right today because there are few dependencies. Unless we walk that path, I will not be able to show you that right now. So better walk the path with me, and then I'll keep on showing you the different scenarios. Okay. Okay, who's that, Tanya? Yeah, I think your question got answered. Who's that, Adesh? How to see the definition of a function, defined function like type or print? When you are in Python, if you want to see some information about a function, say F1. So simply say F1, just put your cursor on that function. You are in PyCharm and just say F1, and F1 will show you what that function is made for, what that function is accepting parameters and stuff like it. For example, if I want to see the help about the type function, just go back here and say something like F1, and here it shows that type function is kind of returning the data type of that variable. So you can see it here. If you want to see more, you can just click on that. It opens your browser and it goes to directly inside the documentation, which shows you the information about that function. This is the PyCharm. PyCharm uses a very nice feature integrating the documentation of Python right inside the IDE itself. That's how you can get the help of it. If you come back to your function, for example, I doubt, but if you come back to your function and say this is the function I'm calling, I can use F1. I'm sorry, I can use F1. It might not work. I know it's not, but yeah, oh, it is now this functionality is added. Very good. So they have updated it. So whatever functionality or whatever documentation string you are updating, very nice. Maybe the PyCharm has updated the feature now. It wasn't there earlier, but now it is reading the documentation string, the one which we have written here. This is the function to add the two parameters, and I can see that the parameter p1 is the first integer argument, the p2 is the second integer argument, and probably it returns nothing. So again, whatever documentation string or the doc string I have written, you can see it here. It wasn't there. See, it's a PyCharm, it's an ID. It keeps on changing the feature. It keeps on adding the feature. So this is a nice feature they have integrated, they have added inside the newer version of it. That's good. So this is how you can get the help about it. Okay, I think Adesh, that answers your question. Okay, does the pass have any predefined value? Okay, so probably if you go back to your so-called notes, I already have created a point which talks about predefined values and predefined keywords as well. Predefined keywords. Let me just search for it. Let's say pass. Do I see it somewhere? This is an empty function, parameterless function. That's what we have seen last time. Where are you? This is again the class and other things. Okay, it seems like I need to search for it. Okay, but anyways, you will find it somewhere. I'll search for predefined. No, okay, maybe somewhere there, but this is the predefined word. Okay, so just go through your notes and probably I already have mentioned it. Even if I'm not, then I'll have to check it. If not, then I will mention it later. But this is one of the predefined keyword. And this predefined keyword is the one which is used to say, don't do anything, simply ignore that line. So in this case, when you are writing this function, that function is going to do nothing because I said pass. Okay. Okay, I hope that answers your question as well. Good. Fayaz, does pass has any predefined value? I think you know the answer now. Shruti, your question, how do we identify the end of the function? I said that last time. Whenever you are using the multiple statements following the same indentation, where you change the indentation, there you can say is the last statement of your function. That's how it is kind of working in Python. Okay, so that answers your question, right? Okay, so someone is getting an answer. Parth, you are saying the print is not defined here because you might be using print with P capital. That's the reason why it is not working. If you see the print is not working, that means you are using P with capital P, a print with capital P. That's the only problem you are having here. Just change that to small p, it will work. Okay. Python teaches how to teach us about the discipline. Of course, yes. That is the reason why Python is one of the best languages, and this is something called as the best from different world. There are many languages which are inspired from Python. I mean, it's like many language developers like Chris Lattner. He's the person who has designed something like a Swift. Swift uses many features coming from Python. So Python inspired many developers, many other developers as well. You know. Okay, Jagrat, your question, where can I find the shortcut keys for running the code? Shortcut keys, you can right click on this and you can see the run option. And besides that run option, you will see the shortcut key here. Now, depending on your operating system, the key may vary, but this is where you can find it. If you don't want to find it here, you can go to PyCharm, you can go to the preferences and you can just search for keys or shortcut keys. And there you will find ton of options available here. Whatever code, whatever shortcut key you are searching for, you can just search for here. For example, run the application, just search for run and you will get an option to find a shortcut key to run. So that is how you can do it. I hope, Jagar, that answers your question. Okay. Okay, so okay, is there any other question, Adesh? Another logical operators other than and or is like XOR not, is it working with the Python? Yes, there are few, but for that we'll have to load some different libraries and we will see that how to load the libraries later. Okay. Utpal, keys are also platform dependent. Yes, it's not the Python actually, it's the PyCharm. The shortcut keys are not given by Python. The shortcut keys are given by PyCharm, and PyCharm is operating system dependent. So yes, the keys are operating system dependent. Okay, so that's how it goes. Anyways, so now you know how to write the function, how to write an empty function, how to write a parameterless function, how to write a parameterized function at least with one parameter, how to write the function with more than one parameters. So we have seen a couple of examples here. Okay. Now I can go back to my existing application, the one which I started last time, and one where I was repeating my code. I said this is not a good idea to repeat the code, and that's the reason I'm going to make sure that this function is getting reused all the time. So maybe I'll say this is the def. I'll say that this is can underscore vote. If you can recall, I mentioned that in Python, it's not a good idea to follow the camel convention. Whenever you are using any variable or any identifier, make sure that you are separating logical or meaningful word with underscore. So that's how it goes. So I'm going to write a function like can vote, which is going to expect an age value. And I want to put this inside my function, inside my functions function scope. So I'm going to press tab. It will make all these statements part of my function. Now this is not age underscore one. This is age rather, and this is how we are going to solve the problem. Now instead of saying age age underscore one equals to 18, I mean I still can do it. Okay, let's do it in this way then. I can pass that function. I can call that function and pass age one. I can call that function and pass age 2 and do the same thing for age 3, and that solves my problem. You see, now we are not repeating the code, and because we are not repeating the code, the things become a little bit simpler to implement. So when I run my code, I see this person is eligible for voting because the person is having age 18. The second person cannot vote. It's just because the second person is of age 15. The third person can vote. Yeah, that simply works, you know. So that's how we can create a function. That's how we can call the function by passing the parameters. The one thing which I missed here is triple double quotes. That's a documentation string. And here I can say this function is made to check if a person is eligible for voting. Eligible for voting. That's the use case, or that's the reason why we have written that function. Age, maybe I can say age of a person, and what does it return? It returns nothing. So probably we have not used any keyword like return yet. We will do it in a minute, but this is how it does the job. Very good. Now let's come back here, maybe in the same example list, that's page 3. I am going to write one more example where instead of just printing every single thing in one single function, I want to write that function in such a way that it will return some value. So probably I'll say def. What did I do last time? Add, right? Okay. So this time I'll go for multiplication. So I'll say def multiply. I'm expecting two parameters p1 and p2, and this time I will do the multiplication, but I will not print the multiplication result inside the function. Rather, I will return the multiplication function here, multiplication result here. Now to do this, I may say multiplication, which is equals to p1 star p2, and then I will say return, return what? Multiplication, that's it. Now this function is a parameterized function, no doubt in that. So let me mention that, this function is a multiplication parameterized function, and this is made for multiplying two parameters. So I'll say multiply two parameters. That is how we, that is the reason why we have designed this. Again, it is an integer variable. I'm just making it very small, very simple right now. Integer, and it returns the multiplication, multiplication of two parameters. Okay, so I'm writing the function with proper docstring, and I think we have done with that. We have written that function. Now we want to call it. How do I call it? I'll say this is the answer, for example, which is equals to multiply. I want to multiply, let's say 40 into 60. So I want to get the answer here. Probably you can see that we are calling the function. The function is accepting two parameters, p1 and p2. P1 will be 40, P2 will be 60, and probably the answer will be multiplication of P1 star P2. That's P1, it's 40, P2 is 60. That means 40 into 60, 2400 is the answer. Let me just come back here and I say this is the answer, which is equals to something like an answer. That's it. So this is the way you are going to write the code, and probably you see that the answer is equals to 2400. Now, whenever you are writing a function in Python, please remember the function may or may not return the value, but signature is going to remain same. You may not notice anything here because when you are in other languages like C, the very first thing is like, what is the return type of that function? Here, not the return type, not the variable type, not the parameter type can be decided explicitly. So here, when you talk about the function's return value or return type, the second one is the function parameters data type, and the third one is variables data type. You cannot decide explicitly. So that's how it goes. Here also, when you say return, depending on what value you are returning, it will automatically decide the data type of it. That's the reason why we call Python as a dynamic language. So probably you see that we are kind of returning a value of multiplying 60 and 40, and then whatever the answer we are getting here, we are printing it there. So basically the multiply is a function which is kind of returning a value. Rest of the functions we have written so far, they are not returning anything. Okay, so this is how it goes. Now there is a question actually. I know some of you might be having this question, so let me answer this before you ask the question. I have another function. This is the quick question to you as well. I have another function. Let's say, what is the sequence? That's the function 3 we have written last time. This is function 4, and just assume that right inside this, I'm not in JavaScript, here it is. So maybe I can say inside a function 4. That's it. I have a function 4 here. The function 4 is not returning anything. At least for me, it is not returning anything. So probably I want to give it a try and see what if I say something like, again, answer is equals to, or let's say value is equals to function 4. Let's see what does it return, because I have not written anything explicitly. So I just want to see what happens if I try to get the value out of it. What does it return? So probably I'm just going to go back here. I'll say print, and I'll say what is the value of it. So I'll say value is equals to something like a value. Okay, pay attention to this one and see what does it return. The moment I say run, probably you can see that it is going inside function 4 and it is returning nothing. It is returning nothing, and that's the reason you see the value is equals to none. Again, when you are in Python, none is a predefined keyword, predefined value which points to nothing. So whenever you want to say nothing, you will use something called as a none. Maybe other languages may use something called as a null, N-U-L-L. If you are using Swift or other languages, there you can say nil, and here it uses none. None means nothing. So here, whenever you are calling a function which is not explicitly returning anything, by default you are going to get a none. I hope I must have mentioned it somewhere inside the function. That function by default returns a value called as none. And if you're not, if you are returning some value, instead of returning none, it will return your value. Okay. So this is how we are going to get a function returning something. This is the returning function, and this is non-returning function. Non-returning means it's not returning anything. Okay. Let me just see whether I've written it, whether I've mentioned it. I know I have somewhere. Okay, somewhere, maybe somewhere I must have mentioned it. Anyways, yes, I have mentioned it. I know that, but I don't remember where did I do that. So anyways, so that's not a big deal right now. The big deal here is every function returns none by default. If you return something, then your value will be returned. If not, the none will be returned, but at least it is going to return something. Okay, so now we know how to write different type of functions, how we return a value, and how to capture that value. We have seen all these basic examples. Now we want to move further. But before we go to the next point, I want to just confirm the things. Are you all there? Are you all getting the point? Are you all understanding the concept here? Can you please confirm whether you are having any question, whether you want me to repeat anything? If that is the case, I'll do it. Otherwise, I'll go to the next point. Okay. Now, I don't know why, but people are getting dropped. Maybe it's a network problem, or maybe they are having some other work to do. But I see people are getting dropped. That's why I was just a little bit worried about it. You should not feel like it's too much in the same day and you're not getting anything. So I'm just making sure that you are getting it, and there is nothing that I need to repeat. If you want me to repeat something, just let me know. Okay, there is a question, Adesh. If one function returns only one value at the time, like the other languages, yes, it is possible to return multiple values, but they can be added in one single variable or in one single collection. But otherwise, like the other languages, here also you have to return only one value, because you can have only one single return statement there, or return keyword. You can return only one value. Okay, that's good. Okay, what am I showing here? Who's that? Shubham, you're asking like to repeat this function. There is nothing inside this function. This function is doing nothing. So instead of simply calling the function, I try to see what does it return. So if I say run, you see that it is doing nothing. It simply prints the a statement saying inside function 4. I know that the function doesn't return anything, but still I'm a little bit curious about what does it return if I'm not using the return keyword. So that's what I was checking. And when I call that function, which is not having explicit return statement, I got the value as a none. So I made a kind of a statement saying every function in Python returns none. If you are returning your value, like in last case, I returned a value like multiplication of two numbers, then your value will be returned. Otherwise, by default, it is going to return none. So that is the way you can do it. Okay, Shubham, I think you got the point. Okay, Tanya, return is also predefined. Return is the keyword. In any language, there are a few keywords that we with which we can write the code. Return is the keyword, like other languages, with which you can say the function is going to return the value to its caller. So this function is returning a multiplication value to its caller, and the caller can accept that value by using a variable and then calling that function in this type. So call that function, whatever it returns, it goes to the answer here. That's how it goes. Okay. Tanya, you want me to talk about this exit code 0? Whenever you are in any programming language, it doesn't matter whether you are in Python or whether you are in C or whether you are in C++ or in Java or any language. Every language has some convention, and in every language there is one thing common. It's not about the language, it's about the operating system. Operating system understands that the exit code 0 from an application seems like everything goes well. I mean, everything already has gone well. In a sense, the application didn't crash. The application worked very well. Application worked smoothly. And that is what is represented by using exit code 0. If for some reason the application crashed in between, or the application has received something that it shouldn't have received, then it will crash with an exit code of 1. So basically, exit code 0 means success and exit code 1 means non-success, or it's called as an erroneous code or erroneous scenario or erroneous condition. I don't know whether you are coming from C or C++, but if you are coming from C, only for those who already have seen that C code, you might have said integer main blah 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 blah, and towards the end of it you might have written return 0. Return 0 in all operating systems simply means your application went successful, your application execution was successful and there was no error. Okay, so Tanya, 0 simply means it is a successful condition or it is successful execution, and 1 means it is erroneous code. 1 or -1, it's kind of erroneous code. Understand that 0 means success. Other than 0 is always an error. It can be -1, it can be +1, it can be any value. Only 0 means success. Other than 0 or non-zero value is nothing but an error. So that is what the significance of exit code is. This has nothing to do with Python. This is a general operating systems convention, not the language conventions. Operating systems convention that whenever operating system receives that 0, that simply means the example or the code worked very well. And if it is receiving a non-zero value, it understands that there was some error while executing that code. Okay. I think that now you got the answer. Lomash, your question, how to get the data type of returning value from a function. How do I do that? Not a big deal. We can do it here quickly. This is none, so there is no point of talking about it. But anyways, I can do it here. Lomash, this is the answer to your question. So this is how we can get the return value from that multiply. I can see answer is equals to answer, and then I can say the type is equals to type of answer. That's it. So because the answer here is the multiplication of two numbers, it has to be an integer. So I'm using two integer values here as operands to those operands to that multiplication example. So if I'm using two integers, naturally the result will be also an integer. So this is the return type. There is no way I can specify the return type while I declare the function, while I define the function, but I can easily check the data type of return value, and that is the returns, the function's return type. Okay, so that is how we can do the job. Okay. Okay. Yes, we can. Just tried it. Very good. Hemant, your question. Please repeat the concept of AF. What is using F? I don't know what exactly you're talking about F here, Hemant. Can you just please be little bit precise? I'm not getting what is that F you're talking about. Okay, you got it. Very good. Digvijay, can we use an array? Wait. There are many things coming up. Just hold your question. You will see that answer tomorrow. Vivek, method overloading is possible. Wait, coming up. Aniket, your question, is it mandatory to use return statement? No, return is not mandatory. It all depends on you whether you want to return the value or not. Up till this function 3, we have not written a single value. Starting with the function 4 and multiply, I started returning the value. So returning a value is optional. If you don't return anything, by default you have seen it is returning none. So here in function 4, you have not written any value. So that's the reason it has returned none value. Okay, that's the default convention you have to follow in case of Python here. Okay. Amran, the exit code 0 is successful execution, 1 is abnormal termination. Absolutely. Erroneous code or abnormal termination. Absolutely. Abhilash, your question, will two different functions with the same name with different parameter work? Wait, we'll talk about it. By the way, you're talking about the function overloading, but we'll talk about it. Ankush, is it compulsory to write the return keyword? No, I said that is not the compulsion here. You may or you may not return the value. Vipin, what is the entry point function in Python? I don't know whether you were there yesterday or day for yesterday, because I mentioned there is no entry point function required in Python, and you have noticed it. Neither in function in page 1, page 2, or page 3, I have written any kind of entry point function. It's not required, and it's not required in the sense you can't write an entry point function in Python. Entry point function is required only for those languages which are compiled languages. Pure compiled languages like C or C++. Those are pure compiled languages. There you need an entry point function. Okay. There are a few exceptions to that language like Java, where also you need an entry point function, but that's not a pure compiled language. That works like Python. Python is a kind of scripting language. Here, the execution starts from the first line of the code. That's the reason we do not need any entry point function. Vipin, I think that answers your question. Milin, function overloading condition. Wait, we'll see that answer later. Kedar, I'm getting an error saying the name multiply is not defined. You might not have use that function at all. So probably you first have to write that function, the function multiply. So first write that function and then call the function, it will work. Okay. Shrikant, can we enter the parameter values at runtime? Of course, yes. We want to get the input from user. I'll show you today how it is done. Just wait for a minute. We'll show you that. Suyog, what is the meaning of return statement? Return means you are returning the value to the caller. So whatever the value you are calculating here or the value you want to send it to the caller, you can send it by using return. Okay. Okay. Hopefully you are getting it there. Good. Okay, Hemant, I think again, I don't know why this question is coming all the time and every time. I'm doing it one more time. I'm trying to explain it one more time. See if you can understand. F here means it's a formatted string. Formatted string means it is used to get the variable's value, and that value will be added, will be embedded in the string. So when I say answer equals to answer, check this here. Answer is equals to answer. The value of answer is getting here as a 2400. It's because of that formatted string. Okay. So probably if you want, Hemant, I would suggest check the yesterday's video. You will find more information about it. I explained that yesterday as well. Okay, now the questions will not stop here. It's better we can continue with the next point. Probably if the questions are very important, I'll notice them and I'll try to answer them, because you guys are asking the questions which you will get the answer in the next couple of topics. Anyways, let's continue with this one then. So probably I can see the question, functions we have called, we have written a couple of times, everything was working fine. Now I want you, or rather I want all of you to focus on this example. This is completely different way to call a function and pass the parameters. So please stay focused. This you might not have, and you will never have seen that, you must not have seen that in other languages. Check this out. Very, very simple example, but see how intuitive it is. This is the function I'm writing here. Let's say this is going to be my function 1 as usual. As usual, what we have seen last time. So I'm going to say that inside function 1, pay attention. Inside a function 1, as simple as that. I want to have a parameter here. Let's say this is going to be the param, and I want to print the parameter and its value here. Again, F, that is the parameter. That's param is equals to param, and the data type of the param, just want to make sure that we are getting the right type here based on the value. And this is how I can call the function by passing value equals to 10. You know that when you say function 10, that means the 10 value will be passed to the parameter, which means here param is equals to 10. This is something which logically we can think about, and logically we can say that param is going to have value 10 because we have passed a value 10. And of course, when you say param is equals to 10, the data type is nothing but an integer, naturally, because that's a whole number. Now, when you talk about this function here, this function, we are passing a parameter 10, and this is generally the way to pass the parameter in other languages as well. But you know what? I mentioned this earlier as well. Python is a little bit different than other languages. So what is the uniqueness of Python? Now, when you are in Python, the function can be called with another way. Pay attention. So this is the way I'm going to call that function. I'm going to say that I want to pass the value equals to 10. But I know the value I'm passing 10, I want to assign it to a variable, a parameter, something like a param. So I may say, call that function 1 with param, which is the parameter having value is equals to 10. Writing this and writing this is going to give you exactly same meaning. So when you are in Python, the function can be called by passing the values along with the parameter name. So that is what I want to just show you in this example. So in this example, you can see the function 1 is getting called by passing only value, and the function 1 is getting called by passing the value along with the parameter name. So probably if I just go and say run, you see I'm calling that function 1 by passing param equals to 10, and that's the reason the param is getting value. I know you will feel like it's not required because I know it's value 10 I need to pass, but just wait for a second. Maybe if I go back here and say this is the function 2, the function 2, and here I say P1 and P2. Watch what happens here. I'm going to come back and say print again. Let's say we are inside inside function 2. And maybe I can come back here and say this is P1, which is equals to P1. Again, the data type of it, I just want to make sure that we are getting the data type every single time, so you can understand. The data type will be automatically calculated, automatically decided by Python when you are passing a right value into it. So this is going to be P2, for example. Again, this is the P2 and the data type of P2. Now watch what happens here. I can call that function 1 by passing 20 and 30, for example. When I say 20, 30, as per our C calling convention, from left to right, the values will get assigned to the variables. Values will be get assigned to the parameters, not variables, the parameters. So the 20 value will get assigned to P1 and 30 value will get assigned to P2. And naturally, this is the way you might have seen in other languages. Here also it works. If I say run, I can see that the value 20 is assigned to P1 and value 30 is assigned to P2. I know this is okay, but you know what? We are going to use this Python in number of different scenarios. Precisely when you are using this Python for data visualization, let's say you are using a package called as matplotlib. Later we have to do it anyways. So there, when you call that matplotlib function to draw a chart or to draw, let's say, a nice graph, there you have to pass 20 parameters at least, for example. Now in a function, when it is expecting 20 parameters, it becomes very difficult to remember all the sequencing of those parameters. In a sense, here I am passing P1 and P2. It's very simple because there are only 2 parameters. Imagine there are 10 parameters you are passing. So how will you start, how will you remember the sequence that P1 means this, P2 means this, P3 means this? Instead of doing it, you might say, I don't care about the sequence. I can say P1, because I know the P1's value is 20 and the P2 value is equals to 30. So this is another way to call that function. Get the things clear. Again, when I say P1 equals to 20, P2 equals to 30, I think I'm making myself very clear that the 20 value will be assigned to P1 and 20 value will be assigned to P2. Very, very simple. Yes, and that avoids many confusions that you are going to see later. So right now, looking at the function call, it is very clear that we are passing 20 to P1, 30 to P2, because we are specifying the parameter name along with the parameter value. Guess what? Now you can do in a different way as well, because ultimately you know that you are passing value 30 to P2 and 20 to P1. I might say P2 is equals to 30, P1 is equals to 20. Will it work? Of course it will. So just run that code and you will see that P1 is still equals to 20 and P2 is still equals to 30. This cannot be done without using the parameter name. If you try to call this function as a function 2 and say 30 and 20, like what I did earlier, the 30 will be assigned to P1 and 20 will be assigned to P2. Check this out. This is going to give you the wrong implementation. Can you see that? Sequentially, the leftmost parameter, leftmost value will be passed to the leftmost parameter. The leftmost, that's 30 value, will be assigned to leftmost, that's a P1, and then 20 to P2. That means it is going to give me P1 with 30 and P2 with 20. No, that was not my intention here. My intention was P2 should have 30 and P1 should have 20. This is the right way to do it. So if you are using something like this, that will give you a chance to, just change the parameter position as well. And it really doesn't matter anymore, like when you are passing which parameter and what is the sequence that you are following here. So you can pass P1 first, P2 first, so on and so forth. It doesn't matter. Believe me, let me just go back here and say this is another function. This is very, very simple and intuitive. This is one of the points which kind of inspired the other languages like Swift. In Swift also this thing happens. And Swift's developer, Swift's inventor, Chris Lackner, said that he has borrowed this syntax or he has borrowed this concept from Python. So Python is a language where they started using this kind of context. Actually, Python has also got inspired from the other languages called as Smalltalk. So Smalltalk started making it famous. Then Python implemented it for the first time. And then the other languages got inspired from Python. Anyways, so that's P1, P2, and P3 and P4. So see how you can do that. This is print inside function 4. I'm sorry, inside function 4. Sorry, my bad. I forgot to say that it's function 4. and function 3, sorry, my bad. Again, this is function 3, and probably I'm going to make sure that we are printing all the values there. So this is P1, P2, and this is P3, P4. P3, P4, say P3, P4, and P3, P4. That's it. So see how many ways you can call that function. I can say function 3 by passing 10, 20, 30, 40, which means the P1, P2, P3, P4 will get in sequence 10, 20, 30, 40. Fine. I can also say that function 3, P1 is equals to 10, P2 is equals to 20, P3 is equals to 30, P4 is equals to 40. And this is the way we can call that function by passing the right value. This is again going to give me exact same answer. Now it really doesn't matter whether you are following the sequence or not. You can pass parameters in really any sequence. I may pass like P2, P3, and then P1, and then P4. It doesn't matter, because ultimately you know that you are passing the parameter values, or you are passing the actual arguments with the parameter name, and that will always work. So this is a good idea that in Python, when you are calling the function, you can also pass the parameter name. That will avoid some confusion, that will avoid some kind of complexities you will see later when you are calling a function with 10 to 20 different parameters. And that's the reason why this is very famous in Python. So if you look at the Python documentation, you might see that many a times Python documentation calls a function which is following this particular style. So instead of passing parameters only by values, in Python, we generally pass parameter name equals to parameter value format. This is the format which is recommended by even Python. So again, depending on you, you simply decide whether you want to go with this syntax or this syntax. If you ask me, I would prefer this syntax. So more or less, next example onwards, we will pass the parameters along with the parameter names. Okay, that's how it goes. Okay, but this is the fusion that will help the static values how to assign the dynamic values. There is nothing to do with the static and dynamic values here, Shripati. Here we are simply passing the values along with the parameter name. Okay, so right now the values we are getting here are kind of hard coded values. Maybe if you really want to get the input from user, let's do it quickly and see how we can pass those values to the user, to that function 3. Now, when you want to get the input from user, all you can say here is print, you can say enter value 1, for example, and to get the value, you can say value 1, which is equals to, there is a function called as an input. So input will get the value from user and will pass that value inside the value 1. I can get such 4 values, say value 1, value 2, value 3, value 4, something like this, 2, 3, and 4. And I can say that this is the value 4, this is value 3, this is value 2. And then I can make a call to that function by passing function 3, which is equals to value 1, value 2, value 3, and value 4. So hopefully now you see that, who's that? Static and dynamic, you're saying that? Here it is. Shripati, this is how we can do it. Now you can get the values and then you can pass them along with the parameter names as well. So again, P1 dot value 1 or value 1, let's say P4 directly, which is equals to value 4. Say P1, which is equal, P2, which is equals to value 2, value 2. And finally, the one which is remaining is the value 3 with the P3, So probably when I say run, you will see that in this context, it is asking me to enter the value 1. Okay, no problem. I'm going to say 10. It's going to ask me to enter the value 2, 20. It's asking me to enter the value 30. Fine. It's now asking me to enter the value 4, which is 40 for me. And you see that in my code, in my function, I see I'm getting the function called twice. And every time I'm getting the same values. This example shows 2 different things to you. One, how to get the input from user. I think that is a question many people have asked yesterday. I said, wait, tomorrow I'll show you. This is the way you can get the input from user. And another way or another small concept you can see here is like when you are calling that function, how you can pass those values entered by users. So user entered 4 values, value 1, value 2, value 3, value 4. And those values we are passing to the function 3 just by passing the values alone without having the parameter names. And of course, when you are calling that function, the function can be called with the values along with the parameter names. Shripati, this is the way you can pass the dynamic values. This is the way you can pass the static values. Static means the values which are hard coded, and dynamic means the values which we are getting from the user. So if that is the way you are expecting, this is the way you can do that job. Okay. Okay, if I ask, is there any concept of default variables? Yes, we are going to talk about that in a minute, but this is the way you can do it. Abhilash, what if you will pass the value for only 2 parameters? You are going to get an error. So probably if you just do it here, I don't want to enter those 4 values. I'm going to put that in comment for now. And here I'm going to make a call to that function. That's function 3. If I pass P1 is equals to, let's say 30, and let's say P4, I'm sorry, comma, P4 is equals to 10, for example. And if I do not pass the value for P2 and P3, which is not going to work, isn't it? So of course it is going to give you an error saying, hey, you are calling that function with P1 and P4. Fine, understood. But what about the P2 and P3? You're not passing the mandatory variables here, you know. So probably when you talk about something like this, you are, you have to pass that. It's mandatory for you to pass all the parameters value. And that's the reason why we were passing all 4 parameters here. So that is the way it is kind of going to give you an error if you're not passing the parameters there. Okay, so that is what is going to happen if you pass only few parameters than what the function is expected. So if I do it here, I see that this is the way you can do it. Those people who are asking the question related to the class integer, what that class means, I will explain what that class is later when we go for object-oriented programming. Right now, ignore that class and focus on the data type. Okay, so the class integer simply means this is the data type integer. What do you mean by class is what we are going to see in details later in object-oriented condition. I think that is that okay, Suyog and Prashant? Maybe you can hold your questions and you will get the answers later in details. Okay. Okay. Okay, Milin, your question. Yesterday you said that it's converting bytecode into assembly language, and what that interpreter does is only the bytecode line by line. What is it needed? The load line by line. Okay, Milin, we'll talk about it one more time. Not today. We are today in a different context. Let's come out from this context. Let's finish this topic and I'll talk about it one more time. Okay. Okay, yes. Now that's a nice observation. I wanted you to observe something, and yes, a few of you correctly observed something. Let me run that code one more time, and probably when I say run, you will see that it is asking me to enter the value. See what I'm going to do here. I'm entering 10, I'm entering 20, I'm entering 30 and 40, and I'm expecting all of these values 10, 20, 30, 40, all of them to be integers. But yes, your observation is absolutely right. They are considered as a string. Now you might be asking the question to yourself, like, why on the earth these values are strings? Because I see that all of them are integers, all of them are the whole numbers. But guess what? All of these values are considered as string values. Any guess what could be the reason behind this? Any guess? Why is it giving me string and why is it not giving me integer directly? Any guess? Exactly, Akshadam, you're absolutely right. Because you are passing the values in the console, and because the console is going to accept the values character by character. Do you get the point here? Character by character means 1 will be considered as a character, 0 will be considered as a character. And guess what? Multiple characters maybe bound together or just brought together, they are called as a string. A string is made up of multiple characters, isn't it? So whatever you return here, I mean, whatever you write here and whatever you pass to your program, by default, everything is considered as str. Everything is considered as a string. And because it is considered as a string, that's the reason why you are getting all of the parameters as string. So how do I convert them into different data types? How do I convert a string to type integer? How do I convert that string to a float? How do I convert that to the Boolean? Exactly the point we are going to see tomorrow. So tomorrow you will see how to convert that to different data types. The topic is called as typecasting. Those are, those who cannot hold their patience and those who wants to see right now, no problem. Just go to your so-called notes and there you will see I've added a point to do the typecasting and you will see how it can be done. Anyways, it's very simple, but I don't want to bring every single concept on one single day. It will be a kind of chaos if I do it. So let's do it tomorrow, not today. Today we are in the function context. Just focus on the function. Tomorrow we'll talk about how to convert those data types from one to another one. Okay, that's the way we can do it. Anyways, so keep this thing in your mind. By default, whatever you are going to enter on the console will be considered as a string. If you want to convert that to a different data types, it has to be done explicitly, and tomorrow you will see it. Okay, now let us finish the last point and we'll call it a day. Now, last time I talked about a function having 4 parameters, and I said that we were passing only 2 parameters, and I said that the remaining 2 parameters were also mandatory for me to pass, because by default, whenever a function is having or a function is expecting any parameter list here, all these parameters are mandatory. You have to pass the value to every single parameter there. But again, when you are writing the function, most of the times in Python, the functions will accept many parameters. One of the examples I mentioned earlier is like when you go to Matplotlib, there you have to call a function with almost like 20 parameters. Guess what? When you go to machine learning later, then there also you will have to call different functions from different packages which are accepting more than 20, 25, sometimes 30, 40 parameters, depending on which algorithm you are calling. It becomes very difficult to pass all those 20 to 40 parameters. And that's the reason when you are in Python, this can be solved by using a small concept. See what that concept is and how we can write a code here. I'm going to write a function function 4, and I'll say that there are 2 parameters, P1 and P2. Like last time, I'm going to say that this is the function 4. And also I want to print the values along with the data types. So this is P1, which is equals to P1, and the type is equals to the type of P1. Similarly, I'm going to do that for P2, and this is how we can do this. That's a very simple example. Okay, so here if I call that function 4 and if I pass 10 and 20, there is no problem. I'm saying function 4 is getting called without having any problem. 10 and 20 are the values passed to P1 and P2. But if I pass P2 or P4 and if I just pass only the first parameter, my application is not going to work. My application is going to throw an exception saying, hey, you have missed the parameter P2. It's mandatory that it is expecting that parameter P2, so it is mandatory that you have to pass that parameter's value. But what if I don't want to? What if I don't have a value for that parameter? So in the context where you don't want to pass the parameters, or in a context where the function developer knows there are many parameters and there are few parameters which are not mandatory to pass, you can make them optional. By default, every parameter is mandatory. But if you want to make some parameters optional, you can pass the default value to them. For example, I may say, P2 is equals to 20. Now, when I say P2 is equals to 20, in this context, P2 by default already has a value 20. And when I say P2 by default has a value 20, if you not pass the parameter here, by default, P2's 20 value will be considered. Last time I was getting an error because I did not pass the value for P2. This time, let us see what happens. If I run my code now, probably you see that everything goes well and it has accepted the default value for the P2 parameter here. Line number 59 is where I'm calling that function 4. I'm passing only the first parameter 10 and the second parameter is missing. But though it is missing, Python knows that the P2 has a default value 20. It has taken that 20 value here. Guess what? I can come back here and I can say, hey, just call that function 4 with the value 40 and 60. Now the question is, which value will it take for P2? Will it take the value 20 or will it take the value 60? The answer is, if you do not pass the value for that second parameter, then and only then the default value will be taken. But if you pass the second parameter's value, P2's value, this value will take the precedence. In a sense, it will accept 60 for P2 and not the 20. So precisely when I say run, you see that P1 is equals to 40 and P2 is equals to 60. That's how it goes. So when you talk about the default values or when you talk about the optional parameters, here the parameters may have the default value and the default value will be taken in a scenario where you are not passing that parameter's value when you call that function. So line number 59 is where it is going to take the 20 value, but line number 60 where it is taking the value equals to 60. You see that? wow, a coincidence again. So this is P1 equals to 10 and P2 equals to 20, P1 equals to 40 and P2 equals to 60. Just look at this one. Here we did not pass the value, that's why it was kind of considering 20. Here it got considered as as a 60. Okay, now if I just come back and try to call that function, watch what I'm trying to show you. If I try to call that function with P1 equals to 40 and P2 is equals to 60, which means now I can simply call that function with the parameter names. P1 equals to this, P2 equals to this. Again, I can come back here and say, hey, call that function 4 with P1 is equals to 50. And guess what? I'm not going to mention the value of parameter P2. If I do not mention the parameter P2's value, you see what is going to happen. You see, P1 has got the value 50, P2 has got the value by default as 20. So now if you see in this function 4, we are having one parameter which is mandatory, second parameter which is optional. Okay, so let me just write one more example of it quickly. I'll say this is function 5, and in this example, maybe I'm going to add one more parameter, P3, which is having a value equals to 30, P4 having value is equals to 40. So basically I've just added two more parameters, P3 and P4. So this is P3 and P4, P3, P4, and again this is going to be P3, P4. Okay, what I want to show you here is like out of 4 parameters, 3 are optional, 3 are having the default values, and only 1 is mandatory. So probably you can say function 5, which is equals to having a value, let's say P1 is equals to 10, for example. You see P2, P3, P4, and all of them will take the default values. So I see 10, 20, 30, 40. I'm not getting any error anymore, just because all of these are having default values. That's how it goes. Now the good thing about this is, just let me show you this one here. Because P2 is mandatory, I need to pass the value for P2, so I'm passing the value for P2 as P1 10 and P2 20. Now you may pass this as well. So you may say P2 is equals to 30 and P1 is equals to, let's say 90, let's say 80 and 90. So basically I'm changing the sequence between the P1 and P2, and you know what? I don't even have to worry about the P4 and P3 anymore, because P3 and P4 are having their default values. This is what we are going to see later in different packages like Matplotlib or maybe something like a NumPy, and there are many other packages where this is very standard mechanism to call the function. I hope you are getting it. So this is exactly like what we have done, what we have kind of expected from Python. So if there are 20 parameters, I'm not supposed to pass all the parameters. Most of the parameters will take the default values, and only those which are mandatory I will pass. Those which are having the default value I may or may not pass, depending on the scenario I was in. Okay, so this is the way you can do it. Okay, Girish, the default parameter goes from right to left here also, or we can assign it randomly. I hope you got the answer, Girish. So this is the way you can do it. Probably you can also say that, no, I don't want to use a default value. P3, I'm going to take the value equals to 90 again. Yeah, you are free to do that. You see, you can pass the value of P3 anywhere when you're calling that function. That's how it goes. Okay, another question quickly. Have to have default values right to left function as in CPP? Yes, like CPP, it does the same job here in Python. All the default values should be on the right hand side. I mean, you cannot just pass the parameters default value here saying 10. This is invalid, because if you do it, then you have to pass the default value for P2 as well. If you really want to do it, then do it in this way. Put it on the right hand side and then make it as a, P2 as a first parameter. Then it makes sense. But otherwise, in between, you cannot have a parameter which is having a default value. All the default values will start from the right hand side. That's the kind of a rule that you have to follow here. Okay. Like Java, the variable initialized with taking the 0 parameters. Okay, that's correct. Sripati, I have 2 parameter value, but the first parameter have the value, second parameter has an empty situation. How to write it? Empty parameter means you will have to go back and use it as a none. None means there is literally nothing. So that is how it goes. Sripati, whenever you say empty, whenever you say none, whenever you say null, you can use the value as a none. So all of these values, I mean, all of these parameters will have their valid values except P4. P4 here is a none. If you want, you can pass it, or you can literally skip it, depending again on which scenario you are in. Okay, Omkar, your question, is it necessary to pass the default value from the right side? Yes, it is necessary. It is mandatory that you have to pass it from the right hand side. Okay, so you must have already seen an example where I showed you that last time. Amar, if we pass P3 and P4 again, nothing is going to happen. You see that here. So probably if I just go back and say P4 is equals to 100, the P4 100 value will be used instead of using none. So here it was none because I did not pass. Here it is 100 because I passed the value. Nothing is going to happen. It's going to take your values instead of taking the default values. Okay. Shripati, you are having a 2 parameters. Okay, so probably you got the point. Can we use the function pointer to function in Python? Again, Adesh, hold the question. There are many different things. I already have shared the notes with you. You can go through the notes and see what is coming. So probably all these points we are going to cover in near future. It's not possible to cover every single thing in one day. And even if I do it, you will not be able to understand anything. So let us do it one at a time. Let us do step by step. Mega, your question, if we do not pass the value P1, keep the other values as default, what happened? Try it and see what is going to happen there. Okay, those which are having default values will take the default values, and the one which are not having the default values, if you do not pass them, you will get an error. That's the simple logic behind it. Okay. Rohit, I have a question on comparison operator. We have done here n1 10, n2 is equals to 10. If n1 by n2 is equals to n1 plus the comparison result is yeah, that's okay. You can check the value and you can do it accordingly. It is returning the float and integer comparison as true. If we want to compare based on the data type, how do I do that? When you are comparing the integer and float, I hope you remember I mentioned one more operator there. Instead of using slash, go for slash. That will convert the value into integer, and then you'll be able to compare them. Okay, that's the simplest thing you can do right now. Okay, Adesh, please upload yesterday's paint. Yes, I will. Today I'm going to put that there, no problem. And Utpal, yes, I will. Yes, I will send a PDF file one more time. Nested if it's possible in Python. Yes. Tripadi coming up. And please share all the codes. Yes, I will share on your WhatsApp group as well as in the Git. Okay, you will find it on both the places. You can get it from WhatsApp, and if you want to get it from Git, you can also get it from Git as well. Not a big deal. Okay, I think yes, Sachin, I'll share the previous batch code as well. Not a big deal. I'll put that right inside your Git repository. You can get it from there as well. Okay, no problem. Lomesh, there is no reference book for Python. I don't have right now. Maybe I can suggest you a couple of them, but I think the notes which I provided, it's a kind of, it's kind of mixture of different books. So probably if you want to refer it, you can. If not, just tell me. I'll give you a couple of references of the other books as well. Okay. Website is python.org. You already have seen that earlier, isn't it? Just go back to the python.org/doc. There you will find the entire thing, python.org, and there you will find all the documentation and stuff like that. So probably, okay, Python, just search for this. Sometimes, python.org. So there you will find the entire documentation. So this is documentation for Python. You can find every single thing about the Python documentation here. And the good thing is here, I mean, you can directly go back and try to use the F1, and then you can go from here to directly the documentation there. Okay. Okay, no problem. Yes, Siddharth, you're coming from Java, and this accepts of multiple variable arguments. I shared the notes. There is a point we are going to cover. Not right now. We have to first finish the collection topic to see that, because by default, if you want to consider the variable length argument function, there we have to go for a collection like tuple. We have to see that later, and dictionary as well. Okay. Okay. So now I think it's better we can call it a day. The questions will not end as you see. So probably tomorrow we are going to continue with the functions advanced topic. Like there is a lambda we are going to cover. There is a function alias we are going to cover, and there are a few more small topics regarding the functions. We'll finish and then we'll complete the function, and then not tomorrow, maybe in the next session we'll start with the collection. Okay, no problem. I'm going to give you a kind of assignment possibly in the evening. So probably you are going to take some time to solve that. So if you finish it by tomorrow, well and good. If not, then finish it by at least another day tomorrow. Okay, So by today evening, you can expect an assignment for all these topics. Okay, guys, I think it's better we can call it a day. Thank you very much for attending today's session. Have a very great day ahead. I hope I'll see you tomorrow exactly at 8 o'clock. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.